Hello, be alive with you once again today, Saturday afternoon, Saturday, October the 31st. And as usual, you know that this is the time for the Comfort Zone on GEM FM, based in Canada, while I, the host of the Comfort Zone, is based in Grenada. And as usual, my name is, it hasn't changed. It's Raphael Pablo. And today, I know that, no, this is the 14th edition, I should remind you. Brother John, do you have our usual comfort zone song? If you can just play a bit of it, thank you. Yes.
Get out of your comfort zone. The fear that you're not confronting cannot take your life away. The game of life out there waiting for you to come out and play. I tell you, get out of your comfort zone. I know it takes plenty courage to start all over again, but patience and real perseverance could bring you positive gain. I tell you, get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. I know that you have greatness in you. So, get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yes, so I'm beseeching you, get out of your comfort zone and come join me here on the Comfort Zone for today, October the 31st. As I was saying earlier on, we on GEM FM, but I am based at Sunset City in Victoria, St. Mark. And today is a bit rainy, we haven't been having much sun today, but in any event, it's just one of those days. I guess the farmers are very happy for the rain today. I want to say before I get into anything otherwise, I want to say first of all, thanks to Brother John for continuing in spite of the physical challenges that he's facing presently. And I hope that he has a speedy recovery. I also want to call on those of you, many people, as you know, Brother John Callis is a man of faith, he's a spiritual person and a religious person. And I just want to call on those of you out there who are so inclined to consider him, during your innovations. Yeah? When you, in that process, to consider Brother John when you are going through your invocations, I should say. Okay? One more thing. Today, I was supposed to have representative of the New York chapter of the NDC. But there has been some unexpected developments, some unforeseen developments, which has resulted in the NYC not being able to be present today, and I would hope that at some time in the future we'll be able to have them. So today we definitely are going to have a shortened version because one, Brother John, who is the technical operator and usually serves as my co-host, I don't intend to exhaust him given his condition, and I do not have any guests with me today, so I've had to put something alternate in place. And as a consequence, I'm going to share the topic with you shortly. But before I get to the topic, the subject of the conversation today, I want to remind you because oftentimes people say, oh, yeah, we need to do something. People need to get up and get in the communities and try to do something or try to do things to help to address some of the challenges that we face in our communities. And so you'll find that a group of teachers right here in Victoria St. Mark, and I'm working with them trying to coordinate this, this event. They have organized what is called the St. Mark COVID-19 essay competition. And it is open to all students from St. Mark, okay? All St. Mark students, every student within St. Mark who fits the age categories, they are entitled to participate. Now, so it doesn't matter if it's a student that's going to McDonald College or going to St. Rose, or so once they fit the age category, because the age categories are 7 to 9, um, 10 to 12, and 13 to 15. Okay, these are the age categories for the for the competition. And as some of the teachers that are involved in this, Mr. Curl Bristol, now those of you from Victoria, okay, those of you who from St. Mark and so will know Mr. Curl Bristol very well. You would know teacher Fossil Charles. Yes, she is also associated with this endeavor. You will know Miss Carol Ellis and Miss Tikima Paul and Shad Noel, all teachers at different levels. And Mr. Bristol is one of the main go-to persons. And his phone number, you can reach him at 418-0382. I'll say that again, 418-0382, because they are looking for contributions to make this thing a success, right? As the coordinator, Raphael, Paul, Pablo, my number is all over the place. You know, you go on Ray Blow Leather Creations on Facebook, you are going to see my number there. It's 417-7666. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a little more detail about it. As I said, age categories, 7 to 9-year-old, they had to write a composition telling everyone what they missed most during the lockdown. Okay, so it's the COVID-19 essay competition, the St. Mark's COVID-19 essay competition. And the 7 to 9-year-olds are to write an essay within 100 to 150 words, and their topic is what they missed most during the lockdown. Because you know we were under lockdown for a period of time when you were not allowed to leave your homes, you know, within certain hours and all that kind of thing. Children were not going to school. They were receiving their assignments online. And that in itself brought other challenges. So it's against all of that background that the teachers decided to do this thing. And they do have other initiatives, you know, in the lineup. The 10 to 12s, they are to do their topic is, I should say, imagine COVID-19 is a person who has taken up residence in your home. And they are being asked to write a letter to that person, letting that person know why that person, COVID-19, is not welcome in the home. I don't think anybody wants to welcome COVID-19 into their homes, right? So, but they have to do that within 200 to 250 words. And then you have the 13 to 15-year-olds. These are the secondary school students. And they have the option of writing on that topic, okay? But they also can do an essay on a world without COVID. and they are to write an essay on that topic saying specifically what differences they would like to see in a post-COVID world. Okay, so that's what the three categories of students are requested to write upon. And I say, although there's three schools, the Bonnet Government School and Samaritan Presbyterian Schools, these are primary schools, yeah, in St. Mark, and the one secondary school is the St. Mark Secondary School, that's based in Waltham. And but even if you don't go to any of the schools, but you're a student from St. Mark, you can participate. And in either schools, in Bonnet Government School, Mr. Bristol is the man who is going to be collecting the submissions. Samaritan Presbyterian School, Ms. James, and in St. Mark Secondary School is going to be Mr. Richards and Ms. Charles. And we'll the intention is to give first, second, and third prizes in the three categories. And the first prize is going to be a tablet and $200. The second prize, one tablet and $150. And the third prize is going to be one tablet and $100. And every participant, we want to give them a little token, a little $50. Okay? So if you're listening out there and you are in a position to contribute to that, please do make a contribution. Okay? Reach out to Mr. Bristol, okay, or myself. All right? Um, oh, I should add that the submission deadline is November the 20th. So got a little time to go, about 20 days to go. All right, submission deadline is November the 20th. And students are being asked to do their submissions handwritten because you know the teachers, they want to make sure that children can still write. So they don't want anybody coming and presenting something that's been typewritten and so. They want to make sure that children can still write because even me, the fact that most of the thing I do, is prepared on a laptop and so on. And even me having, the handwriting is not as copacetic as it used to be anyway. So that being the case, I think I've given you all the information that I need. So if you want to make a contribution, remember, check Mr. Bristol, 418-0382. Very diligent gentleman. And we're looking at down the road the prospect of establishing an IT center, because there are some challenges that students face who do not have internet access at home. And as one of the principals said to me, some don't even have electricity. Because as you know, St. Mark is always, has been considered for quite a while now. And I don't use the terminology that is usually used to define St. Mark. I usually say economically challenged. Economically challenged is one of the more economically challenged communities or parishes in the country. So as a consequence of that, we are trying to do these things and we're looking at doing other things going down the road in order to make this thing work, So that being said, I believe I've taken care of that. So remember, the people that involve, Mr. Bristol, Miss Ellis, Teacher Tikima Paul, Fossil Charles, Teacher Fossil, and Shad Noel. You can contact any one of them. You can speak with any one of them. If you're from the community, you can reach out to them and they would be able to advise you accordingly and be able to share as much information as you would need. Okay? So this is your comfort zone for today, October the 31st, the final day of the month. And this, as you know, is a very historic month. It's the time when, and throughout the entire month, the conversation has been going on and on about the revolution and the end of the revolution. And every year we go through that period. Those of you who joined us last week, you would recall that we had a program where we looked at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats that came as a consequence of the revolution. What were the strengths of it? What were its weaknesses? What opportunities, right, came into being as a consequence of that? Okay, what were they? What opportunities were embraced? What opportunities, in hindsight, may have been missed? What were the threats, considering the fact that it was a socialist-oriented government administration? And that was something new to our region, because apart from Cuba, there's no other administration, that was along that line. But it must not be forgotten that all of this was happening against the background of what was called the Cold War. And most of the people involved in liberation struggles around the world were left leaning. Grenada wasn't the only one. So Grenada's, it is understandable that while there would have been people who were part of the anti-Gary struggle, right, that were that had the contemporary mindset, remain with the traditional thinking. There were those who, because of the learning, because of the study and so, who came back from university, Morris and Bernard Code and so, they were internationalists in their thinking. And as a consequence, they had some of those political philosophy or ideology, if you want to call it that, as it's being touted, because we see that some people are spending quite a bit of time, on these conversations, analyzing us within that context up to today. Like one man said in a conversation on Facebook recently, when a picture was posted showing that event that takes place annually on the fort, on what's his name, George, no, which one is Fort George? Yes, Fort George. It used to be called Fort Rupert, right? It had been renamed during the revolution after the father of Maurice Bishop, who had been killed during the anti-Gary struggles. And it was renamed when after the revolution fell. So on Fort George, on October 19, there is a ceremony that's held there every year. And a photograph was shared on Facebook. And the response, one of the responses were, and I quote in here, "The leader of the revolution was not grounded in our Grenadian culture. And he was also selfish and egoistic too. He wanted to be the owner of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique for the rest of his life." So that's one of the opinions that you find out there in analyzing the revolution and so. And many people are in that mode where when this time comes, there is that conversation, there is that debate as to who committed more atrocities. Was it Gary? Was it the revolution? Was it the Mongoose gang? Was it the PRA? And so on. And we go through that period. I should say, we have been going through that period for the past 37 years. And it is for this reason that I took the approach that I took with the program last week, looking at the revolution from that standpoint, from that vantage point, because we haven't been having that kind of conversation. Now, there are those who would say to you that the revolution started before March 13th. Debatable, okay? But the fact of the matter is, prior to March 13th, 1979, there was not anything called the Grenada Revolution prior to March 13th. And that ended in October of 1983. And that was the period under review. So the conversation, as I set it out to be, was intended to look at that period. And so as a consequence of that, I should say, it would not have served the purpose of the agenda that I had established, because remember, this program has been the opportunity and the option and you know, to do this program has been granted to me by John Caliste, who owns Gem FM, who is the owner, manager, whatever, of Gem FM. Okay? And so this show is my show. And whatever comes out here is as I would have conceptualized it. So if I invite guests, and in inviting you, I send you a voice note that says, that spells out completely what the intentions are and what I am trying to accomplish, what the conversation is going to be about, you can never be justified in trying to insert things into the conversation that is going to take us down a different road than the agenda that I laid out. And as a consequence, it's my right to stop you if you are meandering down a different pathway, to say this is not what this conversation is about. Let's get back on track. Because anyone who was so invited had the opportunity to say, I am not going to participate in such a discussion. Because all I want to speak about is, all I want to do is do a comparative analysis between Gary and Maurice Bishop and Code and the Revolution as to who committed more atrocities than who, and so on and so forth. I just want to be able to vent. I want these people who did these injustices to come out and speak the truth and so on. That is not what comfort zone dealing with the revolution was about last week. Okay? And I think we need to have more conversations, because we keep lamenting the fact that the young people of today do not know anything of consequence about that period. Because in the aftermath of the revolution, there was a concerted effort to erase those things from the minds of the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Pitimatnik. And so these young people, they have grown up not knowing anything about that period, because it was taboo to speak about it. It was taboo for Calypsonians to sing about it. Okay? You were being seen to come and speak in a particular way, as one guest on one of the panelists on Talking Point last night said, you know, as you said certain things, oh, there they go again, they want to bring another revolution. Watch them, you know. So you had that situation. So this person made that comment about Morris, and there was a response that said, I think Morris was leaning away from the communist ideology, and that is what caused the confusion. So I guess that debate could go on, and I guess over the years, you are going to see, you know, different things coming to the fore on that. Now, the individual also said the following, and I'm quoting. Now, one may wonder why I'm delving into that. And I'll get to that point shortly. He said, Basically, we had a system in 1979 to 83 that based its policies on an ideology that was new to the Grenadian people. About 95% of the population were just listening to educated people talking new ideas. Those educated people, all academics, talking about changing Grenada, and they were bringing foreign expertise. And I am talking about foreign experts with technical skills intertwined with an ideology. Furthermore, our Grenadian population is a post-slavery population with family, with close family ties. Therefore, with all these foreign experts coming to the country to reshape our mindset, it couldn't happen overnight. And it is obvious that they would have had an impact on the population. We as Grenadians had become pupils of a new ideology inside our own country, living in a proxy state, in a paradigm shift, in a new paradigm shift. But the new paradigm apparatus was made of the same material historically. Now, ideology of the revolution. Now, as I said earlier on, most of those involved in the liberation struggles at the time were left-leaning, which means they were not capitalist in nature. They were not, they were anti-colonialists, okay? So they were left-leaning, so they were in the socialist camp, some in the communist camp, right? The political philosophy that was being taught was, people were being taught Marxist and Leninist political philosophies. But it is not true to say that this was imposed on the people. The reason why I say so, that element was being taught to party cadres and select operatives. It was not something that you would have heard in the speeches, right? Maybe implicit, right? But it was not something that was being presented in political addresses. And so you didn't hear anybody speaking about communism and Marxism. That wasn't talked about. That wasn't taught, right? They focused on getting people to appreciate, listen, we have made significant improvements in your health care and services. We have made significant improvements in your education and so. We have now taken agro-processing, because one person said to me agro-processing existed before. It didn't exist on the scale that came into being under the revolution. There was not the kind of agro-processing where you can stuff and you ship stuff overseas, and that, yeah, people used to dry fish and people do these things, little cottage industry. But there you had, it was a national initiative. It's different. The two are not incomparable. But people spend time dealing with these semantics, And now in this dispensation, we are talking about the need for agro-processing. So what are we talking about when we say agro-processing? And the only practical example we have had of that level before was during the revolution. Okay? So as a consequence of that, I would say that that ideological component didn't come to the fore. It was not preached in that way. It was taught to party cadres and select operatives. The regular people on the ground, the people working on the estate in a general, they didn't know these things. They were not aware. So as a consequence, one cannot say that that there was any serious paradigm shift in that manner among the masses of the people. There wasn't. Prove me wrong if you can. Now, considering that after the revolution, the young people were not taught about these things, They were not exposed to, they didn't even know anything about the revolution. And I can tell you from practical experience, I've been to, those of you who know Nulo in Palmis, I've been there a couple of times to speak about the revolution. And they were hungry for information about that period because they didn't know anything about it. And so if these people, these young people now don't know about it, how then could an ideology that were among party cadres over 30 years ago impact on the mindset now? No, it's true there are a few diehards around, okay, who still hold to those precepts. That's their right and their entitlement. But they are not in any position to influence any serious resurgence that is going to impact on our governance and whatever it is going forward. Yes, I know we're talking about the one state government that is being pushed right now and so on, but that is not an ideological thing. It is just about power and control. It had nothing to do with Marxist Leninist ideology and philosophy, which is what the writer is arguing, and always the line that is always pushing. Now, as I've said before, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. I was not in the frame during the period of the revolution. I was not in the frame. I was not involved with the revolution in any way. And I didn't suffer any of the distresses that others did. I didn't suffer that. So I can look at that period more objectively than many can, okay? Because I'm not conditioned by being a part of it and having lost something, or neither am I conditioned by not being involved with it, but being branded a counter and being incarcerated and whatever. I am in neither camp. So I am in a position to take a more objective look at the picture, you know? So the real influence, the real foreign mindset influence that is driving us right now is yes, it is foreign, but it's not ideological in that sense. It is materialistic. It is individualistic. It's about personal gains. It's about commercial imagery in dress, in food, in speech, and you experience it. That's why, no disrespect to anybody, that's your right and that's your choice. You feel that you want to bleach is okay. But that's why you find young people now doing that. Back in the 70s, early 80s, we didn't do that because we were coming out of the Black Power era where black is beautiful. No, that is no longer the case. People want to lighten up the complexion. People do not, we were saying, grow what you eat what you grow. Right now, people want to eat what's coming in a package from overseas. Young people do not want to eat callaloo soup and pumpkin soup and so on as we used to. We used to love that. No, they don't. They pop a bottle and drink some colored something. We made juices, you know? So it's a different mindset. Yes, it's driven by foreign influence, but it's not ideological in that sense. That ideological influence that existed, that political ideological influence that existed during the revolution time, that's no more. That's history. No, our politicians don't say what we can do for our country. That saying about it's not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country. That doesn't exist right now. You get many stories about people who come here wanting to invest and so, and they need to liaise with government in order to make the project happen. And you hear stories about being told where the various government officials would say, "Oh, so what's in it for me? What's in it for me?" You get that about coming from parliamentary representatives and so to local people who's come back and want to invest some money and provide a few jobs for people. Yeah. Oh, what's in it for me? That's what it is about. And so the mindset, what has become prevalent among our people is that we have lost, well, not totally, but that sense of community, that sense of collectivity, us coming together and do things. People are not too particular about that. That's why it's difficult to get people to vote, that era of voluntarism that existed during that period. Oh no, we can't come up with the money. It's a problem. And that is where we are at right now. So it is not this ideological thing. So that is where the conversation ought to be. How do we, there's any influences from overseas to be addressed? These are the influences that we need to be speaking about because these are the influences that are now directly impacting on the mindset of our people, both mature and young. These are the values that are driving what we do and how we do it. And it is impacting on our food bill, you know, the self-sufficiency that you hear government ministers lamenting about from time to time. It is these kinds of behaviors that's contributing to that. And I mentioned it last week and I have to touch it again. And I want to thank my brethren for pointing out that to me. We have a system, a parliamentary system, parliamentary democracy, where our parliamentarians, as citizens under the law, can be sued for libel or slander or so, taken to court for making certain public statements about people. But these people could do the same thing in parliament and they can't be charged. What does that say about our system? Something that you could be brought to court for, you could face legal challenges for speaking to that out of parliament. When you go into parliament, you're legal. You're legal. What's the message here? So when the man on the ground seeing that these people have that kind of authority and that kind of protection, what happens? So these are some of the issues that we need to address if we are going to break that colonial mindset, break from that slavish mentality. These are some of the things that we need to have conversations about in the development, in the creation of our development agenda going forward. And so I want to take a break here. I've played that song recently on some of the programs, and some people, it's really resonated with them. That song by Sparrow about good citizens. you know. So when Brother John gets that lined up, you know, if you can put that in, because these good citizens, they're the architect of economic slavery. These good citizens, these good parliamentary people, you know, who come to you and tell you that we're going to do right by you, make you all sorts of promises. They're protected in that way. And you have to understand that you have a right and a responsibility to take them to task in the delivery of the services that you rely on, that you expect government to take care of, that the responsibility of the government, of whoever they is,
when does someone really become a good citizen? I'd like to know for sure.
Partisan state, within our party connection. And for us, that is the sum total of everything. Anything that my party does is okay. As people have said to me, you know, when you speak about certain things of this ruling administration and the prime minister, give the man a chance. Anything he do, he right. So if Brother John could line that song up for us, take a short break. From that after this, we're going to pick up what's on our program. Brother John, can you pull it up for us? Please? Yes. Good citizen.
When does someone really become a good citizen? I'd like to know for sure. Why, when the ordinary man disagrees with the establishment, they call it treason. Why should they persecute a brother for seeking black power? Don't they know a blind man could see that this is blatant hypocrisy? The real traitors and them are all high in society. Yet the government protecting all of them and penalizing you and me. And in a million different ways they violate the law. It's the same good no good bastards who oppress the poor. They sell in black market, making excess profit, paying a starvation salary. These good citizens are the architects of economic slavery. They say you have the right to criticize, but then you are victimized, and without any reason. Many a time you find yourself politically paralyzed by that same good citizen. Yet these fakes and phonies enjoy a long life of luxury while they spread corruption throughout the country. When they should be arrested, they're protected and respected in this society. And in a million different ways, they violate the law. It's the same good no good bastards who oppress the poor. With a false declaration, tax evasion, defrauding customs duty. These good citizens are the architects of economic slavery.
Yes, these good citizens are the architects of economic slavery. Yes.
In lust and greed and...
Yes. So welcome back to the comfort zone for today, October the 31st. It's the final day of October. You know, this is my month, and I didn't tell you. Friday gone was my birthday. You know, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I mean, at least you can see I'm a guy of advanced age, but I ain't going to tell you how old I am. I'll tell you next time, okay? Yes. So Friday gone was my birthday. I had a good time in spite of the rain, you know, and I want to say thanks to all those of you who are listening here who might have said wishes, best wishes to me on Facebook. Man, I'm telling you, I have a party every year. I have a Facebook party every year. Boy, the amount of cake and thing I just get when you see, hey, you know, my birthday come around, you know, boy, cake and all kind of thing, and you know what I mean? Nice, nice, nice. Thank you to my Facebook family. You know, I love you all. So, these good citizens are the architect. Now, before I get into the main thing here, because we ain't getting to the main thing yet, you know. Yeah, we ain't getting to the main thing here. Before I get into the main thing, I just want to say, you know, express my, to empathize, I should say, with those families that are now in distress as a consequence of the recent shootings, stabbings, and shooting. And I'm speaking here in particular of the gentleman that was shot in St. George's by the police. A gentleman whose son had been shot by the police, who is hospitalized. He came from visiting his son reportedly, and coming from the visit, something triggered, and he just went and attacked police officers and stabbed people and so on and so on. It is a tragedy. I call it a tragedy because it said that, you know, a tragedy is when something, you know, something of great distress, you know, and so has taken place. And that must be very distressing. It must have been that distressed state of mind that would have driven that father feeling helpless to not be able to do anything about what happened. He just decided to take the law into his own hand and lost his life. It's a tragedy because he wounded people, and the families of these people are now in distress as a consequence of that. You know, the country is now divided over that issue. And you see in some people in favor, some people against. I don't see there's any sides in this. To me, it's just tragic that at this juncture in our development, at this juncture in our history, at this juncture in our human existence, that people still have to be running away from the police because of a spliff, and that the police would find it necessary to shoot that person who is running away from them because they've been smoking a spliff. It is tragic. And it really brings to the fore why there needs to be this national conversation about the whole marijuana, the whole cannabis issue. And how far do we go? What are some of the steps that we need to take to address that issue in terms of medical marijuana, given the fact that many people who have certain conditions have to depend on the marijuana in order to get relief. And I can tell you that for a fact. I heard the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, he was saying that in the Parliament of the day, and that is before we got to all of this. It is because of these situations that eventually CARICOM sat down, the CARICOM heads of government sat down and decided we are going to establish a commission to look into it and to report back to us. They reported back to CARICOM, I believe it could have been about 2 years ago. And each government had a mandate as to how to treat with this going forward, how to treat with the process. And we have seen other islands. They have taken specific steps to address it. We haven't. We haven't done anything. We had our prime minister some months ago coming out in the public domain and saying that police should be, should not be running after a man or whatever matters to. I'm not quoting him here, you know, that police should be allowed to use their time to go after the serious criminals rather than harassing somebody with a spliff or a little bit of marijuana and so on and so forth. But we saw almost within a couple of days, we saw his press secretary rolling that back and say that he was misinterpreted. We saw one of the ministers, the junior ministers in his government, also making statement in that regard. We saw that recently. Um, well, I had the General Secretary of the NDC right here, and he indicated that they were in the midst of putting a marijuana policy together, and we saw they had the rollout of that marijuana policy as a party. Because if you are part of you are looking to position yourself for the governance of the country, if you get into government, when you get to CARICOM, you have a seat at the table. That issue is going to be on the table and you have to discuss it. You have to participate in the discussion. So you need to have a policy on it. Our government, up until now, hasn't established a policy. The other party had not established a policy. But then you saw after that policy was rolled out, then you saw clips of the statement made by the prime minister was being paraded as he heading in that direction, which was misleading, really, considering the fact that after he made this statement, you had people from his office come in and say it was misconstrued. That's not what he was saying. Because he did say not under his watch. Well, let's hope that under his watch, because it doesn't matter who does it. It's about doing the right thing. And we tend to behave too much as if this little thing here belongs to me and so on. It's good that you come up with the idea and you present it and you take that initiative. We need that, you know? And ideas is not unique to anybody. It's good that if the ruling administration, now that the opposition has, the main opposition party has put out a policy on it, if that can now motivate the ruling administration, the ruling party to begin that conversation, it's a good thing. And we all come out winners as a consequence of it. So I just felt I needed to speak to that issue. It's a tragic situation, and I hope that the lessons that need to be learned from that are learned, and the actions that need to be taken are taken. Because that's one of the problems. We have those experiences, and every experience, there are lessons to be learned from those experiences. Unfortunately, we don't always learn those lessons. They're sitting there waiting to be embraced, but we don't embrace them. And that's one of our problems. And we need to be more proactive in that regard as we go forward. Now, speaking of going forward, in building a development strategy is not about building for today. It's about building for tomorrow and the years to come. And so I want to have, for the rest of the time here, I want to have a discussion. No, I want to speak on, because there's nobody to discuss with, really. I want to speak on, how do you measure the performance of a government? How do you do that? Is it you just look at certain positive things that have done? They've done a couple of footpaths around the place, you know, and you've built you've built a new stadium, and you've built a port. And does that become the sum total of your performance? Are we to look at other things in analyzing the performance of a government? Excuse me. How does the policies and the practices of that administration really factor into analyzing the performance? What does the track record say about them? What is prevalent in the track record? How is it impacting on the mindset of the people of the country, on the youth of the country? Because you're building for tomorrow, and tomorrow are the youth. I'd be gone, you'd be gone. And it's the people who are young people. These are the ones that will have to be, you know, experiencing whatever the outcomes are from the action that we take, that we have taken today, that the decisions that we've taken today. So how do you measure the performance of a government? And to really get to that, seeing that we're talking about you, there's a couple clips that I want to play for you. I don't really want to, you know, I don't really want to put Brother John under too much pressure today. So I do not have too many clips. It's just a couple of them, you know, that I would like him to play. And there is one that I call Deep Questions, okay? And then coming after that, there is one that I call Imani Strategy, because you know the Imani program, the various aspects of it. That's the flagship program of the ruling administration. You know that. And you know, to say anything negative about the Imani program, or to question anything, or to challenge anything, you know what I mean? That is problem. So I just want to share these two clips with you in order to commence my presentation on that issue of analyzing the performance of the government. Deep Questions, Brother John, if you can find that one, we'll play that one first, and after that we'll play Imani Strategy. Okay, so that is what I think is critical going forward, that people need to be able to question things. People need to be able to speak to things. People not supposed to feel threatened and be put at a disadvantage because they disagree with whatever it is.
Pleasant good night to my brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's not Deep Questions. Deep Questions, Brother John. I know you're not functioning optimum today, and you know, I could understand the challenges that you face, but I really need to get these clips in order to demonstrate something as to the mindset and the thinking that is driving the administration, which causes certain things to happen in a particular way. Because it is your policy and your philosophy that is going to determine how you approach things, how people see you, what people feel it's okay to do or not okay to do. Your supporters, how they treat with people who are not supporters. And it's the leaders who really set the tone for how you treat with these things. So if, Brother John, I'm not hearing anything from my end. I don't know if it's playing, but I don't know if we have a problem here. We've had that issue already before. I don't know, but I'm not hearing anything from my end here. You know, so I really don't know. You know, deep questions. And no. Well, play one. Yeah. No,
Pleasant good night to my
no. You don't see deep questions? Well, play money strategy. Yeah, play money strategy.
All you know, Dr. Keith Mitchell. Some people a lot of people like him, some people don't like him. But there is not one person who say that man is a stupid man. You ever hear the that person you are stupid? No, the man is a smart man. So if he wanted to fool all you, he would not let all you get 4 years. When we looking for, when we go towards election, whether it's 6 months, whether it's 1 year, we go in there. Now we go make things shaky for all you. When we know ourselves, we don't want to vote, down the state, we don't want to vote.
But let me tell you something about this government. And let me tell you something about the leader of the government that you put in charge of you. The person responsible for you, your prime minister. What you know about the prime minister? You see, I don't have to say that. But I got to tell you more because you know. You have a prime minister who understands what you're going through. He understands your needs. He's like your father. And he sends a very clear message to you. And the message is that this government is clearly committed to the Imani program, to the Hope program, to any program that has unity. And that nobody, absolutely nobody going home anytime. And so when they meet you on the street and they ask you, hey, when they're sending all your home, so you see me, I have faith in my government. My government kept me for 4 years, 3 years in structural adjustment. You think they're going to send me home after structural adjustment when things get nice? No. When things gets better, what do you think this government going to do? What will your prime minister do?
Some people come to me and tell me, I say, what you are doing for the last few years? I'm in Imani. I say, how long you've been there? 8 years. I say, well, you're not for Imani anymore. But Imani is 2 years. So, I mean, we're doing a lot of wrong. We cannot continue this. No point taking thousands of young people. We give them hope. And to the Imani program. And after 2 years, what? No exit strategy?
No exit strategy. The words of Dr. Keith Claudius Mitchell, the Honorable Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. No exit strategy for his Imani program, the flagship program of his ruling administration, a program that existed prior to 2013, prior to 2008, when NDC got into office and was there until 2013, and which was returned in 2013 and has been with us. And there was Dr. Mitchell saying that there is no exit strategy for his flagship program. And I should remind you that During the first period prior to 2008, when there was an Imani program, there was no exit strategy. There wasn't even any certification for those young people who were going through those this training period and so. So how can you be a government who has the interest of youth at heart and establish your flagship program about empowering them, and you do not have adequate certification for them, and there is no exit strategy? Now, now we have the National Training Agency, which came into being, well, December coming is going to make them, how many years? It's going to make them 12 years. 12 years is going to be, they're going to be having the 12 years since they have been around. December coming, okay? Because they were established in December of 2008. The National Training Agency came into being. And that's what provides the certification and established training modules, and so for your CVQ and your NVQ and so on. So how can you be a high performance government and your youth, you do not have an adequate training program for them? You do not have exit strategy for them. And at the beginning of the clip, you would have heard the parliamentary representative for St. Mark speaking to a group of these young people in the run-up to the 2018 elections and saying to them, listen, I mean, some people don't like Dr. Mitchell, but a lot of people like him. And one thing you can't say about him is that he's a stupid man. He's not a stupid man. And as a consequence of him not being stupid, after having you in the program for 3 years under structural adjustment, do you think he's going to get rid of you now and put you in jeopardy now that elections are around the corner? You heard her. Nobody could make that up. I wasn't just reading something and quoting her. You heard her. She has the indistinguishable, you cannot distinguish, I mean, the indisputable voice. You can distinguish her voice from anybody else. You know, it was her speaking. This is how we do it. And then you had, what's the other one? Another minister, another female minister. Dr. Mitchell is like your father. And I have a message from him. The message from him is this. But then you hear him saying that Imani is supposed to be for 2 years. So which is it? Which is it? Who is speaking the truth? Who's speaking the truth? But then again, we know that truth doesn't resonate. Truth doesn't reside within these people. You know, because I can play you a clip with Dr. Mitchell, being interviewed in a press conference. And the question, after he making certain statements about the level of unemployment in the country, how they've brought it down to certain levels, and it can even go further within a given time. And he was asked, so how are you going to do that? And he said, well, we've refurbished a facility up in Snell Hall in St. Patrick. And as a consequence of that, we've trained people in furniture making and so on. Grenadian people. Grenadian people. Up to now, that building has not been outfitted, much less to train people. But Dr. Mitchell sat there. And said that people have been trained and they're now going to be making furniture for the schools so they won't have to be paid through the Imani program. Blatant lie. A blatant lie. I mean, oh, everybody does lie. They could hear the naysayers out there. Everybody does lie. I'm not the prime minister of the country. And when you are in such positions, you don't just arbitrarily make up stuff, just to satisfy, to give an impression that you're doing things that you're not. How do you measure the performance of a government? How? Because they did a footpath for you? That gives them a pass to lie with impunity? That gives them a pass to intimidate and to victimize people? That gives them a pass to be indifferent with the flagship program? One set saying it's in perpetuity. It just goes on indefinitely. And then the prime minister comes and says, oh, this program is for 2 years, but we haven't found an exit strategy as yet. So we haven't found an exit strategy. So, we keep you there until we find. Have they found an exit strategy? I was intending to play that other clip, but I seem to have missed including it, deep questions, where the parliamentary representative for St. Mark constituency, because there was a town hall meeting at the Bonnet Government School 2 nights ago, and a young man asked a question, and actually that became the subject. That became the subject of the program. That became the subject of the program last night on the talking point, and it was it was about what does it take to to um, to make things happen, or to for the youths of this country. How do you treat with it, and because the question was asked, and the parliamentary representative, she said, it is difficult to plan for young people. It's difficult to plan for youths because you don't know what youths want and what youths don't want. I mean, she went on further because that's the clip that came out, you know. She went on further to say that in order for them to come to the right findings, they need to engage the young people and have conversation with them and so on and so forth. But the question therefore is, what have you been doing for all this time? She said there's been conversation within the Imani, within the Empower program and this, and but you haven't found in all of this conversation, you're still saying that you need something that is more in depth. What have you been doing all of this time? And that's why I have the question, how do you rate the performance of a government? How do you rate them? But that is the way that they treat with the young people who are the main assets, the young people who come out in the numbers when they had their rallies, and so the young people who Dr. Mitchell stood up on the platform when NDC was at the end of the term, and you had the elections in 2013, and said, come to Papa, I'll look after you. You heard the minister there, she's saying, he's like your father. Is that the way a father is supposed to treat with his children? That you just keep brambling them and you just use them for political patrimony? Is that the way that you treat with these things? Is that the kind of governance that you are supposed to give? How do you measure the performance of a government? And it raises the question, why do you vote? What do you vote for? What's the rationale for you voting? What do you think about? What's your priorities when you decide to vote? Is it just, I just like her or I like him? Is that the yardstick that you use to measure why you cast your vote? Or do you vote because you were given a little handout? Do you think it is accidental that you are being kept in the state that you're in, where you have to be in need and have to depend on and rely on? And it's always a bread and butter issue. So all you have to be concerned that you're kept in that state where your only concern is bread and butter. So the provider of the bread and butter has you submissive to them as a consequence of that, because you need the bread and butter that they provide. Do you think it's an accident that you are kept in perpetuity in that state, that you are kept without any real effort to get you out of that state? So people they can always say to you, oh, I gave you this, I gave you a little this, and I gave you a little that. I'm the one that you get that from. So is that the sum total? Is that of what your desire is? Can a country grow in any meaningful way when it's being run in that way? Do you, as a citizen of the country, ask yourself these questions as to the performance of your government? If not, you better start making an effort to do that. Because I can tell you that once things are run in the way that they are, you can guarantee, you can rest assured that nothing is going to change, right? There cannot be meaningful growth and development once you function that way, once you operate in that way, when things are being run that way. It is not possible for there to be meaningful growth and development once that is the kind of governance that is being delivered. Now, I'm going to take a short break. There is a little song that I wanted to play some time ago. I'm going to play it today. It's called the group is called Champion, and it's called Better Tomorrow, because that's what people generally are looking for. That's what the young people in particular are looking for. So if Brother Callis has it queued up there for me, we'll take a short break with Champion. It's an African group, young people who have been, who's lost their parents through war or through AIDS, and so very talented young people, man. The name of the group is the Massacre, well, they are the Massacre Kids Africana, and the group is Champion, and you should see some dance move. Go look for the video on YouTube, it's out there. Go check it out. Better Tomorrow. Brother Kelly's, when you find it, let's get Better Tomorrow. We take a short break and we're back with you as I continue my presentation today. Just looking at how do you measure the performance of a government. And I started with the youth in particular. So let's get it with Better Tomorrow from Champion, you know. So as Brother John, you get it, Brother John, have you got it? Have you found it? Let's get it so that this break can be taken. Yeah. Mm, 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 mm. Well, okay, so should I go on? All right. I don't know. I guess, and then because I wanted, there's another clip that I wanted to play and so on. But anyway, so it does appear that our technical operator is having some difficulty today. And as I told you, he's really not at his best today, right? And hence the reason why you don't have him participating in the conversation, okay? Because he's usually the operator and also the the um, also the co-host along with me. And so in spite of the fact that we don't have any guests today, he would have been part of that conversation that's taken place as regards, that situation. But I don't know if it's me that's not hearing on my platform here. I don't know what is going on out there, but that's what it is. And because of that, let me just get to another issue. I at that same at that same at that same town hall meeting, you had a situation where a gentleman, I've been told that he's a pastor. He made a comment, and I wanted that to play here too, but it doesn't seem as if we're able to get these things in. So I'm just going to speak to it. And I did say that we are going to have we will have a cocktail version of this program today. So we just go for the next 5 minutes and we'll call it quits after that. We've been here for, yeah, that would make us an hour and a half. So we have an hour and a half today. We get back to normal some other time. But when you hear a gentleman who is supposed to be a religious minister, a man who has a congregation, who preaches to a congregation, he stands up in the public in a town hall meeting that is being streamed live and is now out there on the World Wide Web. And he says, this man, pointing at our prime minister and saying to him, this man is the only man that could box me. And I will say to him, thank you. I was hoping to play that for you here today so you hear it. Well, I know many of you have heard it. You've seen it. It's been making the rounds. Those of you who's on Facebook and whatnot, you see it. Those of you who have your WhatsApp and so, that is making the rounds. We have people from Barbados and people from St. Vincent and so messaging us and saying, what's going on with you all in Grenada? What kind of people are you? Dr. Mitchell, the Prime Minister, this man is the only man who could box me. And I would say to him, thank you, because this man has lifted the country and he has done what and so for the country. So he could box me. And I'm going to say, thank you. Now, and Dr. Mitchell put his head down and he laughed and he laughed and he laughed. I didn't hear him tell the gentleman he shouldn't be making such a statement. It's like he revel in these things because in their environment, among them, to not show loyalty to Dr. Mitchell is faulty. It's wrong. One has to be loyal. Your loyalty to Dr. Mitchell it is more important than your professionalism. He's not particular about your professionalism. It's about loyalty to him. So once you critique Dr. Mitchell, you hate him. You're a hater. And he stands in parliament and makes statements to that regard, that you criticize a project that the government does, you have to be a hater. You have to hate him to take such a position. And as a consequence of that, you have the followers. They have to, and that's the reason why some people don't go to these town hall meetings, because they dance around or just ignore some of the questions, the serious questions that are asked, or they malign you. They malign you. And so some people just don't bother to. I had that experience in Guelph one time in the Anglican school, ask a question, and my question hasn't been answered up to now. But that is the mindset that has been cultivated, where people have to show loyalty to Dr. Mitchell, where people have to be subservient, submissive to them in order for you to be appreciated by them. So these town hall meetings, they serve as cheerleading exercises. So people come out and cheer them on because they control the narrative at these events. It is geared for them. So they ensure that their people are there. It's about their people. These town hall meetings are not genuine thing to get people of the community and so to come and have a conversation and to ask questions. No, these town hall meetings are not set up for that. Yeah? Okay. Yeah? These town hall meetings are not set up for that. It cannot be done in that way. It's about cheerleading operations. You know? So, you had that situation. And it's like you're running a cult. It's like you're running a cult. It's not about governance. It's not about trying to get it right. It's not about doing what is best for the country. A major conversation that's going on now, and I heard the minister, well, the parliamentary representative for this constituency, who is also the minister for tourism, and they're saying that they have to take that money, they have to do that loan right now to do that airport project, because people have been saying, so why is that a priority now? And they say that they have to do that in order to position the country to be able to benefit from increased traffic and other opportunities. So I am really hoping that they are right, because if they're not, then we would have borrowed a significant sum of money and not benefit anything. And we have seen that this administration has a track record of putting the country in debts for which we got nothing. And I'm hoping that they really get it right. I mean, I had Miss Sandra Ferguson here, when 2 weeks ago, and we outlined for you some of the things that this administration has gotten into that has not been good for the country at all. We demonstrated for you how they do things and they make commitments, they give commitments and promises and so that are not kept. Commitments that are supposed to bring so many jobs and so on, like the shrimp farm, the poultry farm, Livera project after project, Mount Hatman project after project that never happened. And in some cases cost the country hundreds of millions of dollars. How do you rate the performance of a government? What is the yardstick that you use to measure the performance of a government? As I said, it's not going to be a lengthy program today. Brother John is very much under the weather. And so I am going to close it off here for today. We've been going on for an hour and a half right now, a few minutes past to that. So I want you to keep that in mind as you go forward. Grenadian voters, how do you measure the performance of a government? What's the yardstick that you use to measure that performance? Okay? And be genuine about it. And don't just settle for anything. Because if you are serious about seeing development in the country, then you cannot allow it to be business as usual. You cannot just settle for some little goodies that you get and say, well, that's enough for me. So, because as I said earlier, we are in that place right now. We have to, the writer who I mentioned earlier on talk about a paradigm shift. We need a paradigm shift away from that mentality of just what's in it for me. We need a paradigm shift back to what, not just what your country could do for you, but what you can do for your country. We need to get back to that, because unless we get back to that, cocotit with dinner, as the old saying goes. Because you know the gentleman who said about that is the only man that could box him and he would say thank you. He also said that if Dr. Mitchell and the NNP is to be removed from government, if they are no longer the government of the country, that the country is doomed. And he said he was prophesying. Grenadian people, young people, I want you to give that some thought. I want you to begin to look at how do you measure the performance of your government? What is that yardstick? And I hope that you don't allow the yardstick that you use for that to be just the fact that you as an individual got something or is getting something while the country as a whole is suffering. Because as I said, once the country is being run, where you have parliamentary representatives asking would-be investors, what's in it for me? The country cannot grow that way. I know oftentimes you hear people make reference to Singapore. Look, Singapore is what? And Singapore did this. I remember Singapore is and Dominica is about the same size, you know. Yeah. I mean, we much smaller than Dominica, all right? But Singapore and Dominica is about the same size. But you know, one of the things that they did? They stamped out corruption in order for them to grow. Some minister went on a trip with some private businessman and so on and so forth, and he was jailed. They stamped out corruption. In our case, we have a prime minister who went on a trip across the sea and collected cash from a fraudster. That's okay, that's no biggie. He went all the way across the sea and collected cash from a fraudster. That's not a lie, he admitted it, he said so. He said he went on the trip and he collected cash from a fraudster. How do you measure the performance of a government? I bid you farewell. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. This is Raphael Pablo signing out from the comfort zone for today, saying thank you to those who would have watched, those who would have joined. I hope that next time, sometime, I would actually be able to have the people that I advertised today, the New York chapter, coming here to speak on matters relating to the NDC and their function and whatever else. I'm expecting a very important individual to be joining me next time around. You'll be seeing it coming during the week. Okay? And next week, Saturday, is the birthday of one of our heroes. It's the birthday of Theophilus Albert Marischal. Yes, Theophilus, my namesake. Oh yeah, my first name is actually Theophilus, you know? Yeah, Theophilus Raphael Paul. Yeah, Theophilus Albert Marischal. His birthday would be next week, Saturday. He actually departed this life on the 6th of October. But his birthday is next week, Saturday. So we'll have a little something to say about him. And I'll be having a very well-known gentleman, a man who is a major talking point right now, who is at the center of a lot of the conversation that's taking place next week. I'm expecting him to be joining me. Mine saying nothing yet because, as I tell you, Murphy has been acting up this past few weeks, boy. Murphy has been doing things, you know, when you have one thing, when it's not internet issues, you know, you have certain guests can come. Now you have Brother John Calise is not at his best, and so on. But we were still able to have a program today, and I was able to share with you. And do not forget the St. Mark COVID-19 essay competition. Contribute something to it. You know, reach out to Mr. Bristol, reach out to me. You know, reach out to Shad Noel, reach out to Teacher Fossil, reach out to Tiki Mapol, reach out to Carol Ellis, you know, and make a contribution to something worthwhile. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I hope that you have a positive and productive week coming up. Bye-bye. All the best.